Continuing on, I come to bone number 7, Ghost Circles. So on the very opening pages, we have some art here, which again looks like it comes from the Rose prequel, which is again a reminder that the Rose prequel was coming out about the same time that these issues were, I believe, if I'm not messing up my timeline. And we will see frequent references to the events of the Rose prequel in this book. Starts off with a prologue. Now, I believe that these prologues, I could be wrong, but I believe that these prologues were specifically created for these bound volumes. I don't think this was part of the original comic book run. And again, I could be misremembering, but I don't think these were included in the previous volume I read, the Bone Epic, the complete epic all in one volume. I think this is just for these numbered 1 to 9 books. It's a nice moment with Jonathan Oakes here. Especially because, as we will later find out, Jonathan Oakes dies in these pages. But despite it being a nice character moment, it doesn't affect the plot at all. You could cut it out completely and you would never even notice it was gone from a plot standpoint, which again is why I think these prologues were added later. Somebody correct me on that if I'm getting it wrong. Then we move into the story here, where their rat creatures and the army are attacking the old man's cave over here, where the villagers are. And meanwhile, Grandma Ben, Thorn, and the Bones are still up on the mountain, where they get attacked by King Doc. Now, King Doc, as I talked about at length in the previous video, maybe I talked about this too much, but he's had his tongue ripped out, so he can't talk. And in fact, you can kind of see here, there's a stub of a tongue there. But yet, somehow he musters the willpower to try and speak anyways. So, let me move this here. Kill you. Kill you. Now, I hate to nitpick this, but something I learned when I was studying linguistics is how different consonants are articulated. And you absolutely do need the tongue to say the k sound, as well as the l sound in kill. So, I mean, I understand he's got willpower here, but he shouldn't be able to articulate these sounds. Then again, he's a monster who's got a different mouth than a human, so what am I doing overanalyzing this? Sorry, it was just one of those little things that bugged me. So they run down into the tunnel, and Grandma Ben says, "I've been here before as well, a long, long time ago." And I think she's referring to the events that happened in the prequel Rose. Unfortunately, I can't double check this because I've returned Rose back to the library. But I think there was a cave in Rose. Was this the same cave? Later on, Grandma Ben gives more details. Let's see if I can find that. I'll find it later, maybe. Here's a great shot of battle between the rat creatures. And then the battle stops once there's an explosion out on the mountain. And then Briar is resurrected by the Lord of the Locusts. In the previous video I said I don't remember how she got resurrected again, but very simple. The Lord of the Locusts just changed his mind, I guess, and resurrected her again. So here she is. But it looks like the Lord of the Locusts has only been partially released. So Because of your treason, only part of our powers escaped. Briar says, I gathered all the necessary forces to free you, and he says you gathered them in the wrong configuration. And this is later reiterated a few times in this book by Thorn, who mentioned that Briar had partially freed the Lord of the Locusts. Now, this is going against what my reading was when I was reading the previous book. I was reading it that Briar had completely messed up and the Lord of the Locusts was not freed at all, right? So here's Briar. She's got it all set up to make the sacrifice, and then she finds out that the creature she's got is not even a Vinyankari. So sacrificing Phonybone would make no difference. He's completely useless to her. So then she could sacrifice Thorn, but she doesn't. The locusts try to swarm Thorn. I don't know for what purpose, but Phonebone gets the locusts away. So my reading of this is it's a complete failure, not a partial failure. And I might be missing something here, but I don't understand how the Lord of the Locusts even got partially released, given that Briar had messed this up so badly. But I guess it does bring up a question which I completely neglected to talk about when I was reviewing the previous book, is why did the earth start moving here? So during the ceremony, the earth suddenly starts moving, the earthquake starts. So what was causing that earthquake if the ceremony was completely wrong? Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. So anyways, going back over here, however you read this, it looks like the Lord of the Locusts has been partially released, which has resulted in the land being devastated. Oh, yes. Here's another quote from Grandma Ben. She says, well, dear, one day when I was your age, I followed my older sister Briar here. The Lord of the Locusts was waiting for us. Again, I think that's a reference to events that took place in the prequel. And when these issues were coming out, I think the prequel was already out. So that they can reference those events. All right, so this is where things get confusing, at least for me. There was some sort of volcano, I guess, which has completely devastated the valley. But then it looks like there was the ghost circles which caused the destruction of the valley, which Briar has unwittingly unleashed across the valley. So I guess this raises the obvious question, how did Briar unwittingly unleash them? And I don't think that question is ever answered, right? Or did I miss something, or is it coming up in one of the later books? I don't know. And then Thorn said, no, only some of the destruction is real. The rest is an illusion. So I'm not sure how this works, and I'm not sure this is explained in the book. Is the stuff that's covered by the ghost circles the illusion? Or is the stuff that's not covered by the ghost circles the illusion? Or is the illusion not connected to the ghost circles? Like, what does it mean that some of the destruction is real and the rest is only an illusion? I don't understand what the rules are here. Thorn also reveals here that she has a piece of the locust inside her. So she says, remember when the Lord of the Locusts tried to possess my body, and you put this dragon necklace on me, forcing him to flee? Before he left, I managed to tear a little piece off and keep it. So now she has some of his powers. Yeah, okay. Once again, this doesn't line up with my reading of what was happening here. It looks like Thorn is completely unconscious. And then after Fonbone puts the medallion on her, then she's helped back to her feet. But I guess maybe she was in the dream world, or she was a little bit conscious during this time. Whatever. I'm going to have to let that go, I guess. So they are going across the desolated land. They have to follow in single file to stay out of the ghost circles. And then there's something, some sort of dreaming going on with the dragon, who undoes the illusions that they had before. Somehow they had been hallucinating or dreaming themselves into Moby Dick characters in a way that's not quite clear how that was working, but maybe it'll all become clear later. And then the rat creatures come and attack them. But they are saved in part by Bartleby, the baby rat creature that Smiley-Bone had adopted earlier. And Bartleby can talk now. And maybe we'll jump ahead to Bartleby. This is a little bit strange to me. Bartleby later on tells what had happened. So he ran away. The first time I ran away was when I got my tail cut off. So he was 1 year old, and rat creatures get their tails cut off on their chopping day. And says, "What in the world for? Because if we don't, the Jack will come in the middle of the night and drag us away by our tails." Now, I'm 90% sure that this is a reference to the story about Big Johnson Bone, who swung the rat creatures around by their tails. It's reprinted here in Tall Tales, which I've reviewed on this channel. But it first appeared in Stupid Rat Tales, which, according to Wikipedia, first came out, I forget, 2000 maybe. But it was around the same time that these issues were coming out. So I'm guessing that, again, this is an example of synchronized writing. This is a reference to what's happened in Stupid Rat Tales, the story about Big Bone Johnson visiting the valley and fighting the rat creatures. But it does all raise some questions about, when did Bartleby learn to talk? Could he always talk and he had just chosen not to in his previous appearances? Or did he learn to talk in the time he was away, which seems like it's only been a few days, but I guess we have to imagine that more time has passed than we've been party to, so maybe a few months has passed. Even so, it seems like a short amount of time to learn to talk as fluently as he can now. But, who knows how rat creatures' maturation processes work. But, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if this was something that Jeff Smith had not thoroughly thought out when he introduced the creature of Bartleby. And then later, when he was working on Stupid Rat Tales with his collaborators, he worked this part back into Bartleby, and we decided that was the reason Bartleby had run away. I'm not sure if that had all been planned out from the beginning. I'm not sure if, the fact that Bartleby suddenly is able to talk was worked out. Anyways, Bartleby is there. And then as Foambone fights against Briar, the hooded one, something else is revealed here. There is a piece of the locust inside of you as well. There's a piece of the locust inside of Bone. So she says, from the very beginning, the dream showed me that a bone creature would become involved in this affair. I just had the wrong one. So that, again, explains a little bit about how she was so badly mistaken about Phony Bone. But then this raises the question, how did the piece of a locust get into Phone Bone? Now, I do remember from the very first issue, they got surrounded by locusts, and Bone had to spit several of them out. He got some of them in his mouth accidentally, and he had to go to spit them out. It was just kind of a throwaway thing, but was that it? Was that how Bone got a piece of the locust in him? Was that something that had been planned out from the beginning? Or is there another reason that Bone has a piece of the locust inside him? We'll see if this is cleared up in some of the subsequent books. But, yeah, they escape the rat creatures. And then the ghost circles here. So it's set up earlier that if you run into a ghost circle, you can die. And here's the rat creatures running after them and running into ghost circles. Thorn knows where the ghost circles are, so as long as everyone follows Thorn in single file, they should be fine. Meanwhile, Lucius is brought back to the camp. And Lucius asks about Jonathan. And Wendell said, yeah, he's good. He's here. Don't think about that right now. And Lucius says, why aren't you looking me in the eye, Wendell? What happened? And this is a well-done moment. Immediately, Lucius realizes, oh no, not Jonathan. So, yes, Jonathan must have died somewhere off-screen since we saw him in the prologue. I guess when we saw him in the prologue, he was already weak and injured, and he didn't pull through. So this is one sign among many, actually, in this issue, that the tone is shifting darker, which is, I've mentioned this so many times in the course of my reviews, so you'll forgive me for repeating myself, but this is the way the epic evolves. Starts out very silly and cartoony, and then gets to these very serious battles and post-apocalyptic landscapes, and I think it works well for the most part, although granted these later chapters are not as fun as the earlier chapters, but the story has made a shift in tone, and I think made it successfully. All right. So Thorn and Bone go into a ghost circle to get some food. And again, this is confusing me a little bit what the logic of this is. So it looks like once they go into the ghost circle, this is the land that's not covered with soot. And this is the way things were before the destruction. So is the ghost circle the way things really are and everything else is the illusion? Or is this the illusion going into the ghost circle? And if the ghost circle is the way things really are, then why is it supposed to be so deadly? But yeah, they come out of the ghost circle just in time. The hooded one is pursuing them there. Yes, Lucius tells his backstory about how he was in love with the wrong woman. So Rose was beautiful and kind. I was in love with her. But Briar seemed more grown up in women's ways, if you know what I mean. as usual, I picked the wrong one. And again, this art style is directly pulled from the prequel series. So, yeah, not to beat a dead horse, but I guess more evidence that this was out at the same time as the prequels. All right. Here's Bartleby talking about his history with the rat creatures. I've already talked about that. And then they have to pass over the dragon's graveyard, which has like a bottomless pit, but they're able to pass over it on this bridge. And now they are almost to the southern kingdom of Athea. I've mentioned a few times before in the course of reviewing this series that it is supposed to be a cross between Karl Barks and Tolkien. And an obvious Tolkien influence here seems to be a journey to the ancient southern kingdom. So here they are journeying to the ancient southern kingdom of Athea, similar to the journey that's going on in The Lord of the Rings. And as we end here, they, let's see, they're up on the mountain, and they're looking at a 2 days journey. The villagers and the mystical men have also decided to journey south to the southern kingdom. And then we find King Doc here, still alive in the cave. So I guess he'll come back a little bit later. Yes, sorry, this is what I was looking for before. It's talking about the geography here, the river, which runs all the way from the valley back to Barrowhaven. 2 days walk will bring us inside of Athea's gates. Phonybone is planning to try another get-rich-quick scheme once they get to Athea. So even though the tone of this book was much darker and there were very few laughs in it, this is a sign that the comedic side of this book, of this series, will be returning shortly. And then to be continued into the next book. And there we have it. That is Book 7, Ghost Circles.